went from World War One-ish type of environment to the atomic bomb. Yeah, because they had no atomic bomb before 1939, 1940, 1941. And if you look at the aircraft, if you look at the early aircraft in World War II, you start off with B-25s and B-26s and what have you. By the end, you have the B-29. That boy flies high. It has all new types of machinery on it and what have you. And it was so much different between 4 years earlier at the beginning of World War II. So the wars increased things in medicine and technology. In World War I, World War II, you see, when they got a stretcher, they're carrying a guy, they always got some blood dripping. It's not blood, it's plasma, because the plasma will fill up until you can get your blood type. They don't know what your blood type is right there. They don't even have, so they give you plasma. But that plasma fills up the space and feeds your body enough oxygen. Plasma has the same makeup of blood. I mean, it's oxygen and all of that. So on battles, in the early years, if you got hit, you usually died. Especially one of the deadliest battles, the most people lost in American battles was not all this World War I, World War II, and all that. Not even Vietnam. Korea, they only lost 57,000. Vietnam, they only lost 58,000 people in Vietnam. You know why? Medicine. They were not like now. Like now, you see all the people now get wounded in battle. They come back walking on stilts and all kind of stuff. If you don't die on the spot and they get you back to medevac you, they're going to push stuff in you, suck stuff out of you, and they'll keep you alive. The quality of life is determined by different people or the person. But you don't die like when you used to get hit on the battlefield, you got gangrene gonna set in. You got you'll bleed to death. If you notice the Civil War, I don't know if you watched any of the old movies, they had a lot of amputees. That was big. No, that was big. That was big.
Bullet in your mouth to bite, no anesthetics.
Oh, yeah, you anesthetic? Huh? They had a little heroin in those days, morphine. They had a little heroin. But no. Do you stick a stick? That was true. They'd stick a bone in your mouth, and you bit that boy, and they cut off your body parts. I mean, and then when they cut your arm off up here, they stuck a hot iron on that boy. Good God Almighty, if you don't die from the bullet, the operation will kill you. I mean, can you imagine how brutal? And then they would just have a wagon full of body, because if you got hit, you had to cut that part off because that's before antibiotics and all of that. Now the stuff that you get hit with, you just take a couple of antibiotics and all of that, and almost you keep running. I'm just doing like they do on the movie, but they be lying a little. John Wayne, he could get shot with a 45, and he could get, they'd pull the bullet out, and he'd ride in a wagon for about 2 days. Things are not healing. When you know a little bit about medicine, you know that, of course, we know that's not possible anyway. Now, they did anesthetic. You ever watch them old westerns? They would take some alcohol, whiskey, pour it on the thing, because they did find out that whiskey was alcohol, and it would, and then they drank a little whiskey and pour the rest on, but it's a long way away from reality. The point is about post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic syndrome and post-traumatic growth. If people analyze what we go through around here, even now when we're cruising, they would have a psychological post-traumatic stroke. The people would, because things involve your family, all your friends, you don't trust anybody anymore, you don't love anybody anymore, and they steal your money and they wreck everything. Like now, even on a resting period, we got 1, 2, 3 cars out there. They all work good the day before. They work real good. And, usually they would, anyway, but that didn't happen so much that we're used to it. We'll just park them out there till something happened, and we'll wait a while. And then dealing with family and friends, people are not psychologically able to deal with all of that. I just want to explain a little bit, like what I'm doing now. I was raised for this type of a job. I was raised for it because when I was 12, I started going to the Youth Authority, California Youth Authority, and I repeated that all the time that I was growing up. So if I would go when I was 12, I would get out when I was 14, and then I would go back when I'm 14. I would get out when I'm 16, and I would go back when I'm 17, almost 18, and when I get out, I would be 20 years old. So I was different from most people do big time when they're older. I did all of mine when I was young, but I was getting used to systems. And I had a behavior pattern that when I study it, I see what it means, and I see what I was always challenging the system. And so, or the authority, the counselor, the ones leading, making us do this, that, and another, I would challenge them in front of all other kids. They had to isolate me. They had to, no matter if they liked me or not, they said, well, you got to go. Because that's a disease. If that spreads, we won't have any more control. Because there's one counselor or 2 counselors handling, like, let's say, 50 people. And if you don't respect them, one thing on the side. When a new guy would come on or something and he wasn't used to the program, we used to throw the guy for no control. That means all of us knew he was new, all of us, so we would act like we don't know what to do. It was called, we called it no control. Somebody said throw him for no control, and it was spread. All the white boys, Mexicans, blacks, everybody, we're going to throw this joker for no control. We're going to educate him. And then they'd have to call the assistant head group supervisor, assistant head group supervisor, which was like a lieutenant or a head counselor from another unit or another company, another cottage that have the experience. See, after he's there for a long time, you can't do that no more because he already know what to do. But when he first get there, you throw him for no control. I said stop, and you keep walking just like, because we used to march in companies, like military style. There's a side notice, since we marched military style, sometimes when groups would pass each other, they'd head up, shoulders back, and then they would start real marching, And then that was one thing we used to do. We'd stomp the left foot. Whop, whop. It makes a noise when the people, when you're young, you do stuff like that. Or you would dig in your heels, lifting your leg way up and coming down. Shoe shop stopped us from doing that because in half step, the institution, when you half step a long time, they took us on a forced march one time at this school, Frico Ranch School for Boys. We half stepped for 3 miles. That means we wore out all the shoes. The shoe shop told them, don't have them do that no more, because they're wearing out all their shoes. We don't have this many shoes. For the people to be half step mean you're almost dragging your feet. You're wearing out the heels, and then digging your heels in. They told them stop that, because the guys come in get new heels you do all that, it makes a nice sound all at once. Whop, everybody hitting their heels. Hit them heels. Whop. Anyway, long story short, I was never in the military, but I was in those jails. I grew up, so I'm system organized. I'm orientated towards systems. I know what systems do, what they feel like, what they look like. If you challenge the system, I know what the system do. It doesn't make any difference what it is. So what we're doing now, we already know. We knew from the day we got started and before what happened when you challenge the system. Number one, you have to be isolated. That's what segregation is. That's what isolation is. That's what the hole is. You see in the movies the tough guy always going to the hole. Okay, well, that was me. Not that I was tough. I wasn't tough or mean. I didn't, in fact, they really treated me a certain way because I disrespected authority, And so since that's the worst thing you can do, is disrespect the authority. I mean, if you run away, you're not disrespecting the authority. The white boys could run away, which is supposed to be the worst thing you can do. They got to call these people, that people, get everybody looking for you, which they didn't do. They just go to your mama's house, and wait for you. But to disrespect authority means that you have to be cut off, you have to be isolated because it's a disease. If that disease spreads, hey, the system's in trouble. Now, that's what we do right now. All of these are old. Racism, Zionism, apartheid, the triangle of terror, that's what we call it then. This is the same period. Who's the real terrorist? The devil's triangle. Of course, so we always call it Zionism, Americanism, and apartheid. They were all, that was a triangle of terror. It still is a triangle of terror. Okay. So when I went to the youth authority, I would do 2 or 3 times the time that somebody else would, because of this, the not respecting authority. I didn't have fights with, well, when you're kids, you have some fights, but I didn't have that many fights with other. In fact, everybody usually kind of liked me a little bit, and I was a little petty leader, and I was good at business, so we could have more candy than, my cruise, all that stuff. So it wasn't that. It was why you have to go to the hole all the time, why you have to be segregated, because you're a disease. And diseases have to be isolated, quarantined. They have to be cut off. They have to be isolated. They have to be segregated. That's what they call all those holes: segregation, isolation, all kind of modern names. But they mean you have to be cut off. It's the worst thing you can do is respect our authority. Now, out in here, what's the worst thing you can do? Not respect boss man's authority. Now, you got to think about it. We're Muslims, and we totally disrespect Zionism, which is worse than what boss man do. It's our level up. We disrespect